A few quotes about parental alienation from the book When Dad Hurts Mom, Helping Your Children Heal the Wounds of Witnessing Abuse by Lundy Bancroft. The book has stories about domestic violence that show some of the many paths to emotional injury and to healing and reconciliation that are walked by children whose mother is abused. These stories offer us glimpses of the alienation that abusers can cause between mothers and their children, and of the potential for those separations to be healed so that loved ones can find their way back to one another. I have worked with many families in which one or more of the children maintain an inspiring degree of courage and integrity, choosing to distance themselves from the abusive man, no matter what the consequences, and sometimes openly allying with mom. In my experience, these children have healthier emotional and behavioral outcomes in the long run, but in the short term they have to endure the stress and anxiety that comes with defying the powerful abuser. The abusive man, in turn, blames the mother for the fact that the child is alienated from him, refusing to see how his own behavior has driven his son or daughter away. Notice the courageous stands your children take, including their outspoken or hidden forms of resistance. Give them praise and support for their efforts to protect their rights, maintain their identities, and stand up for themselves and for you. Dad's actions illustrate the tendency among some abusive men to see their children as personal possessions and to feel that ownership threatened by divorce or separation. This conflict can be intensified by the fact that some children decide to distance themselves from the abuser as they start to discover how much better they feel with less contact. His response can be to try even more fanatically to control them. He typically will blame the mother for the fact that his children are pulling away from him or disclosing how abusive he has been. Many abusers say that the mother is guilty of parental alienation to shift attention away from their own conduct. Underlying this accusation is often his own projected desire to turn the children against their mother so they will be exclusively his. The real perpetrators of alienation, abusive men, among the most cruel attacks that an abusive man can carry out is a campaign to alienate children from their mother. The children who are turned against their mother sometimes appear on the surface to feel triumphant because they get in good with dad, what is known as identifying with the aggressor. But beneath this thin facade are boys and girls who feel frightened, confused, lonely, and self-hating. The loss of their mother means the loss of their one hope for a non-abusive role model and for a source of love and affection that doesn't come with a set of strings attached. With the proper support and intervention, especially if professionals or the legal system get involved and offer assistance, children who have been alienated from their mother by an abuser can find their way back to her. Lundy recommends using resources on divorce only where appropriate. Many materials for children of divorce emphasize to them that they have the right to love both parents, a message that can help children resist their father's efforts to alienate them from you. However, you should look carefully at books or videos before using them, as some contain messages that are not appropriate for children who have been exposed to abuse. They may, for example, not allow space for children's valid feelings of fear toward their father or for the bitterness about his brutality towards their mother. Divorce specialists sometimes mistakenly believe that children's resentment towards their abusive father is strictly a loyalty issue, greatly underestimating the painful impact on children of seeing abuse or intimidation happen to someone they love and depend on. Children's detailed and explicit disclosures are sometimes dismissed with a quick wave of the hand by an evaluator or a judge who declares the child is just trying to please the mother by joining her in her campaign against the father. In recent years, both custody evaluators and abusive men themselves have developed increasingly distorted reasoning for blaming abused mothers for their children's reactions. Mothers who take appropriate protective steps, such as reporting to the court what their children have told them about incidents during visitation, can get labeled as guilty of parental alienation. Abused mothers often feel, understandably, that as soon as a trained professional looks carefully at the facts and sees the effects on the children, he or she will of course stop letting the abuser get away with what he's been doing and will allow the mother to protect her children. Unfortunately, the reality is often otherwise. More often than not, custody evaluators are committed to the belief that children must have extensive involvement with both parents and often refuse to look carefully at evidence of abuse. One of the tragedies of family court battles with abusive men is that children can lose important healing opportunities. For example, mothers who help their children talk through their feelings about abuse that they witnessed can be accused of attempting to alienate their children from the father. The mother can thereby be forced by the court to leave her child emotionally isolated and to avoid facilitating the child's recovery.